the conceptual framework changes all the time, and you go back in scientific history, and you get these really different takes on what consciousness is. And right now, the scholarly world of consciousness tends to focus on one particular way of thinking about it. Consciousness is experience. It's subjective experience. That's what it is. And so in that way of thinking about it, a computer doesn't have it because it computes numbers, but it doesn't have subjective experience according to the way most people think. Maybe an animal does, like the famous Nagel example of the bat. What is it like to be a bat? A bat has subjective experience, but it's experiencing different things than a person would. So the experience of a bat is different from me, and my experience is similar, but still not identical to your experience or some other person's. So in that kind of way of thinking that probably most scholars are focused on right now, consciousness, what is it not? It's not self-knowledge. Consciousness is not, I know that I'm mortal and I'm a person and I have a trajectory and this is my past. That's not what consciousness is. Those are some of the things that are in consciousness. Like, you can have those thoughts and you can experience thinking those things. You can also experience the color green when you look at the lawn, or you can experience a poke on your arm. So you can be conscious of all kinds of different things. You can be conscious of making a decision or conscious of an emotion, but that's the content of consciousness. There's something separate, a separate issue, which is how do you have a subjective experience of anything at all? What's the essentially magic that makes you have a subjective experience? So that's the kind of definition of consciousness that most scholars are focusing on right now in the field of consciousness studies. So who has that, right? Or to put it another way, there's a philosophical concept of the zombie, and the zombie is a creature or a person that has all the same computational capabilities and can move and talk and act, but doesn't have the inner experience. So who has the conscious experience and who's a zombie? And that's, in a sense, kind of the current groundwork in the field, the way people tend to think about it. And then people have arguments, is it just people? Is it just me? And maybe other people don't have it. Or is it humans but not other primates? Is it primates but not other animals? Where do we draw the line? Do bacteria have experience? Do plants have experience? And then there's the people who are the panpsychists who say, oh, everything does, electrons and potatoes and the planets and so on. All right. So this is the kind of general way that people are thinking. And and there's essentially a kind of magicalism to that way of thinking. And the magicalism is that there's the computations and the content, but then there's the magic essence of experience, which you can't touch and you can't quite measure. And you can't push on it and measure a reaction force. So it doesn't have any physical substance to it. It just is. It's the non-physical experiential component itself, right? And so this is fundamentally what's called a dualistic approach, dualistic thinking, that there's a physical world, but then there's this other essence, the consciousness essence, and who has it and who doesn't. And so that permeates the field. Almost every theory of consciousness out there is built on that kind of premise. And the work that I do challenges that concept. It's essentially diametrically opposed to that dualistic, magicalist concept of consciousness. So everything I do is predicated on a different concept altogether. And the concept is that, to put it really as succinctly as I can, everything you believe to be true, everything, including all the things you believe about yourself, including this claim, this absolute gut level certainty that you have this experience inside of you, essentially the magic essence, your certainty that you have that everything you think you know derives from information in your brain. Otherwise, you can't think it. You can't think it. You can't say it. You can't have the thought if it's not represented. If it's doesn't derive from information. It derives from information in your brain. The brain builds what are called models, bundles of information that depict things, depict itself, depict the world, depict your body, and so on. And the key is those bundles of information, those models are never accurate, ever. They're always sketchy. They're always schematic. That's how brains work. And so whatever certainty we think we have about ourselves, it's not accurate. It's always inaccurate. It's always a blurry, sketchy kind of thing, right? This is why, it took Newton to figure out that the color white is actually a mixture of lots of colors and not like a purified luminance without any contaminants, because the brain's model of colors is wrong. It's simplified, it's useful, it's just not accurate. And so when we go around claiming I have this magic experience inside of me, how do we explain how the extra essence appears? The answer is it doesn't. That's just how the brain is describing itself to itself. And don't take that literally. Don't take its self-description literally, because it's not accurate. It's a self-model. It's a self-description. And a self-model is not magic. It's just a matter of computation. It's a big brain's a big computing machine, and it's building models of things, including of itself. And this is the essential answer to this whole consciousness mystery. No magic, no dualism. It's computation. Some brains include that kind of self-model, others don't. And now we can ask which ones do, which ones don't, and what's the usefulness of it? Like, why would that have evolved? Those are other questions that we can ask. But that's the essential framework, the essential answer that I work within. So it's absolutely the opposite of what most of the field is studying right now.